Hi, welcome back to Why Your Brain Matters in Parenting. So, this is part two. In part one, we talked about 4 things you needed to know about your brain to help it work most functionally or optimally. And the first thing you had to know about that, just a quick recap, is that the best exercise for the brain is simply exercise. The second one is that brains are pattern seeking, which just means that if you have a regular routine, your brain is going to be seeking that pattern. And if you don't have a regular routine, that's the pattern your brain will be seeking. The third thing you needed to know about your brain is that building connections on the outside with other people helps build neural connections in your brain. And connection creates cooperation. So you want to be building those connections. And the fourth thing is that the brain functions optimally when you feel safe. And we're going to lead into part two by talking about that safety in the brain so that we can move into our higher centers of our brain. So, again, I told you in part one that a lot of this information came from Conscious Discipline. I was trained with Dr. Becky Bailey, and this is a very simplistic brain model. Obviously, our brains have more than just 3 parts, but for the purposes of working with children and actually truly relationships with anyone, we're going to talk about the brain in these 3 parts. So if you take your hands with me and touch the back of your head, like where your neck meets your skull, right? And say brainstem. Brainstem. So this is the brainstem. And then pretend like you're wearing a headband right here, limbic system. Go ahead and say limbic system. And then right here, your forehead, frontal lobe. That's your frontal lobe. So when you're functioning in the brainstem back here, that is your survival state. And the question you need answered is, am I safe? So you'll see me often reach back and touch my brainstem and say, am I safe? So if we'll talk about the behaviors that you'll see in children when they're functioning in their brainstem, but it's back here, am I safe? When you're functioning in your limbic system, that's an emotional state. And the question you need answered is, am I loved? So back here, you need safety. And up here, you need empathy and choices. And then when you're functioning in your frontal lobe, the question you need answered is, what can I learn? So you need problem solving when you're in that state. So right now I'm going to go through each of these states of your brain that you can function in some more detail. So when you're functioning in the brainstem, the question is, am I safe? So when you see a child kicking and screaming on the floor, or you're trying to pick, come on, it's time to go, and you pick up your child and they're like the limp wet noodle and they're sliding out of your hands, if they're functioning back here, they only have a limited pool of resources. So the only thing they can do is fight or flight or freeze. That's it. And us too, not just children, but when we are functioning in our brain stems, all we have access to is fight, flight, or freeze. So if you remember, I said that you need to know you're safe. So people have said to me, I feel a little silly, Kate, telling my child you're safe when they're kicking and screaming on the floor. And if you say it like that, I can understand that would, you'd feel a little silly doing that. But when your child is kicking and screaming on the floor, they're not making eye contact with you, they need connection so that you can let them know that they're safe. So what you do is you take a deep breath. And I like to pray when I do this. So, Lord, help me see this child like you do. Or, Lord, give me your words, not mine. And if you just took those deep breaths with me, maybe you noticed your shoulders come down a little bit away from your ears. Maybe you're feeling a little bit calmer. Let's take another one together. And out. And let's face it, that's probably the last thing you want to do when your child is kicking and screaming on the floor, especially in the middle of a McDonald's or Walmart or something. You're feeling embarrassed, you're feeling ashamed, you're feeling angry, and you're like, let's just go. But I encourage you to stop, breathe, pray. And then let your child know that he is safe. So you say, you're safe. I'm going to keep you safe. You're safe. I'm going to keep you safe. You might have to physically pick up your child because if he's kicking and screaming in the middle of a McDonald's, I mean, that can't happen. So, you pick him up. I'm going to keep you safe. Something else you can do to help build that connection and move him from the brain stem up into the limbic system is by being a body mirror. So they're not looking at anything, they're not making eye contact with you. So you have to do a verbal mirror. You'll say, your arms and legs are going like this. Now, just for fun, let's do this together. I want everyone to close your eyes, like put your hands over your eyes like this. Okay, did you do it? And now I'll say to you, oh, your hands are going like this. And your nose is squinched up like this. And your legs are crossed at the ankles like this. So did you look at me? Sometimes when I do this in person class, people do this. What is she talking about? I want to see what she's saying there. So it's going to be the same way with your child. So I know it might feel silly at first, but if they're kicking and screaming on the floor or they're turned around, I'm not going to look at you, and you say, oh, I see your fists are all balled up like this. They're going to want to look at you to see what that looks like. And when they do, when they make that eye contact, you can say, oh, there you are. And right away, that connection brings them to the limbic system. So remember, they only have access when they're in their brainstem, or when we are, access to fight, flight, or fool. And what you do as the body mirror is you say, you're safe, I'm going to keep you safe. And then you explain to them what they look like. Your arm is bent just like this. Your fists are balled up. Your eyebrows are scrunched together just like this. So once they've made eye contact with you and you say, oh, there you are, I'm going to keep you safe. And you're breathing and they're starting to breathe. Because if you notice, when I took a deep breath, you probably took a deep breath. It would be even more if we were in the same room together. So the question that needs to be answered in the limbic system, in the emotional state, is, am I loved? So this is where you see in your kids name calling or eye rolling or complaining or whining or shouting and a whole bunch of absolutes. You never listen to me. You always take her side. If you hear those kinds of words, you know that your child or whoever you're in a relationship with is functioning out of their limbic system, out of their emotional state. In this state, we have more than this kind of pool of resource. We kind of have this pool. It's still limited. See, it's not unlimited, it's limited. But what you have access to when you're functioning in your limbic system is everything that you grew up with. So for me, as the youngest child in a family of 5 in Western Pennsylvania, how I grew up, that's what I have access to. So if you've ever opened your mouth and out popped your mother and you didn't even think about it, that's a sure sign that you're functioning in your limbic system. Okay, so when your kids are saying, you're stupid doo-doo head and you never do this, and all my friends have a phone, have an iPhone 20 and I don't, that's letting you know they're in their limbic system. And what they need, what the question they need to have answered is, am I loved? So when your child was functioning in the brainstem, you were the body mirror. But now that they're functioning in the limbic system, you need to be a feeling mirror. So you just guess. I mean, you might not know. You say, you seem angry. You really wanted to have the newest iPhone and you can't have it, and that's hard. So just that empathy. You need to know that you're loved here. And for women, a lot of times that just means that we're heard. So if you've ever driven home from work and called your husband or your best friend or significant other and said, I hate my job and I hate my boss and he's so unfair and all my coworkers hate me, and whoever you're talking to says, well, then just quit. You're like, you're not even listening to me, right? What you want them to say is, oh, babe, I'm sorry you had such a hard day. That's awful. So when you say to your kids, you really wanted to have that toy and you can't have it, that's hard. you have to mean it. It's not going to work if you're like, oh yeah, poor you know, first world country problems. That doesn't work, right? So this is where you can give choices. And later on in this series, we're going to talk about the appropriate way to give 2 positive choices. But if you try to give choices when kids are back here kicking, screaming on the floor, well, do you want ice cream or do you want popcorn? That's not going to work. It has to be when they're here. So moving up to the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is the CEO of our brain. The question it needs to have answered is, how can we solve this? What can I learn? So more than just fight, flight, or freeze, more than just your experiences like this limited experiences growing up, it's unlimited. So if you've ever had a moment with your child or with your friends, or when you said something, just brilliance popped out of your mouth and the problem situation just completely dissolved and you walked away feeling like, I should write a book. I'm amazing, right? If you've ever felt like that, and hopefully you have, you are accessing your brilliance in your frontal lobe. So what we can do for children and people in our lives at that time is you're a thought mirror. So remember, here you're a body mirror, here you're a feelings mirror, and here you're a thought mirror. I noticed you are struggling with that. You know, I notice you're having trouble putting the puzzle pieces together. If they're doing it, but they're not totally losing control, right? If your child's like, like if they start going, because it can happen fast, right? So you can say, I notice you're having trouble with that. What can we do about this? You were hoping it would fit in right, and it didn't. That's hard. Let's see how we could do it differently. So you kind of mirror what you think they're thinking. You don't have to fix it. You just have to acknowledge it. So often we go around as grown-ups. I know what's best. I mean, admittedly, a lot of times we do, but sometimes we don't. So if you just acknowledge it, I see you. I see you struggling there. And you're not alone. I'm here with you. That might be all that they need. So that was a very quick overview of the 3 parts of the brain. As always, I welcome your questions and your feedback, and anything that you need, please send me an email. I can be reached at connectpointmoms@gmail.com, or just comment below on the video. And I hope this has helped your day, and I hope it has helped your parenting. So have a great one.